Ethan Cole stared at the alien world through the viewport of his small reconnaissance shuttle, his jaw tight, his mind racing. Below lay Zithera, a planet of jagged blue mountains and swirling violet clouds, a place humans had only heard of in stories whispered through interstellar transmissions. The reports spoke of the Zithurian Empire, a civilization as advanced as it was cruel, ruled by a lineage of powerful leaders who tolerated nothing less than absolute obedience. And now, somehow, Ethan and his crew had stumbled into its heart. The shuttle trembled as it cut through the atmosphere, turbulence shaking the hull. Ethan's hand tightened around the console. "Stabilizers online," he said, though his voice carried more tension than certainty. Beside him, Lieutenant Mara Nguyen tapped the display, her eyes sharp. "Captain, sensors are picking up a patrol fleet. They're moving fast, too fast." Humans had long learned that brute strength alone rarely won wars against civilizations with faster ships and deadlier weapons. They had come for knowledge, for understanding alien technology, for humanity's advantage in the galaxy. And Ethan knew that even one mistake could end them all. The shuttle's landing bay opened with a hiss, revealing a jagged plateau bathed in violet light. The atmosphere shimmered with energy, giving the mountains an otherworldly glow. Ethan's crew moved quickly, weapons in hand, scanning the area. That's when they saw her. Lyra, the alien princess, stood alone on a ridge, her armor gleaming under the strange sky. She was taller than any human, her eyes glinting gold with intelligence and authority. Even from a distance, Ethan could sense the aura of command that surrounded her. She held a weapon, sleek and alien, and her stance was calm, almost bored, as if the humans were nothing more than insects. Ethan's pulse quickened. "Remember the plan," he whispered. "We capture her. Do not engage unless necessary." "Captain, she doesn't look like she'll make it easy." His mind raced through scenarios, escape routes, alien behaviors, contingencies for betrayal. Humans had survived worse, and they always adapted. Lyra turned her gaze toward them, and in a moment that seemed frozen in time, she spoke. Her voice was clear, precise, and full of authority. "You have come far. You are brave or foolish. Which will it be? We seek knowledge, not war. You may end my life, or you may fail." "You are human," she said softly, almost in disbelief. "Perhaps that is your greatest strength or your greatest weakness." Mara fired a warning shot, energy bolts carving through the air, but they were vastly outnumbered. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm before she could strike or flee. "You're coming with us," he said. "Alive, we may not survive if we stay here." For the first time, Ethan realized she wasn't just a princess. She was a warrior, a strategist, someone who had been tested all her life. And now she was under his command. The patrols closed in and Ethan sprinted toward the shuttle. Mara and the others followed, covering their escape. Lyra's eyes scanned the battlefield, taking in every detail, every movement. Ethan noticed her curiosity, her intelligence, and it unsettled him. She wasn't frightened. She was analyzing. They reached the shuttle just as the first patrol ships hovered above. Ethan's hands moved with practiced precision, activating the engines, calculating trajectories, and adjusting shields. "Hold on," he shouted as the shuttle lifted off, dodging energy blasts that streaked past them. Lyra crouched beside him, her weapon inactive. "Impressive," she said. "Your species survives against impossible odds. I did not expect that." Below, the patrols chased them, but Ethan's navigation and the shuttle's speed kept them just ahead. The tension was palpable, every second counted. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the hum of engines and the occasional command from Ethan. Lyra studied the humans quietly, her expression unreadable. But Ethan noticed something subtle, a flicker of respect, of curiosity, even trust. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Why do you not kill me?" Her voice was softer now, almost questioning. Ethan exhaled, looking out at the stars. "Because killing doesn't make us stronger, it doesn't make us better. It only proves we can be like you, and we choose not to be." And yet there was something in her that shifted. She was no longer just a captured princess. She was someone questioning her own path, her own empire, her own rules. The shuttle finally reached a safe orbit, far from Zithera's patrols. Ethan deactivated weapons and shields, letting the craft drift in quiet space. Lyra stood slowly, her posture relaxed, but her mind clearly still racing. "You are different," she said finally, almost to herself. "You see value where others see weakness." Instead, she had found something strange. A human who did not follow the rules of fear or tradition, who did not kill because it was easy, but because it was right. For the first time, she wondered what it meant to be free, not just from her captors, but from her own destiny, her own expectations. Ethan finally broke the silence. "Rest. We have survived tonight, but tomorrow will be harder. The galaxy isn't kind to Mercy, Lyra, but we'll face it together. This prey could teach her something she had never known. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, silent witnesses to the beginning of an alliance no one in the galaxy could have predicted. Humans and aliens, enemy and captive, warrior and strategist, thrown together by circumstance, yet bound now by choice. Ethan sat back in the pilot's chair, his mind already racing through plans for the days to come. The galaxy was dangerous and Zithra would not forgive easily. But he also knew something humans always knew: adapt, survive, and rise. And for the first time, he allowed himself a small, quiet hope that even in the midst of war, even in the shadow of empires, humanity could change the galaxy, not with fear or destruction, but with intelligence, courage, and the refusal to surrender to cruelty. Lyra remained standing, looking out at the stars, silent, but Ethan could feel her presence shift. The princess who had demanded death now faced a choice she had never considered, and the human who had refused to kill had given her something she could never take back. A new chapter had begun. The shuttle floated silently in the void beyond Zithra, a small human craft surrounded by the vast, indifferent darkness of space. Ethan Cole's eyes were fixed on the navigation console, his mind calculating trajectories, escape routes, and every possible contingency. The patrols were gone for now, but he knew it was only a matter of time before the Empire realized the princess was missing. Lyra sat across from him, her posture straight, her golden eyes scanning the interior of the shuttle as if committing every detail to memory. She had not spoken since the landing escape, and that silence was far from empty. Ethan knew she was calculating, weighing options, deciding if this human captain could be trusted. He did not flinch. Humans had survived worse scrutiny before. Mara Nguyen leaned back in her seat, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the armrest. "Captain, we need to decide where to go next. Zithra's fleet will be searching in patterns. We can't stay here waiting to be hunted." "Lyra, I hope you understand. This is for your safety as much as ours. And in my experience, humans take care of those who matter, even enemies." Outside the viewport, the stars streaked into lines as the ship moved faster than any human eyes could track. Yet even in the silence, tension simmered. Lyra's empire would not overlook the disappearance of a princess, and her own fleet would be mobilized to capture or kill anyone responsible. Hours passed, and Lyra remained quiet, but her attention to detail never wavered. She observed the shuttle's systems, the humans' movements, and even the way Ethan's crew communicated with subtle signals. Ethan caught her gaze once and nodded. "Observing is fine, learning is better, but you need to trust us if we're going to survive this. I will see if you deserve it." "Not all of them. But know this, human, one mistake and your ship, and you will be destroyed." Mara fired defensive pulses from the ship's rear cannons, while Ethan piloted with precise calculations, exploiting every weakness in the pursuing fleet. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. "Port thrusters at 70 degrees, evasive left. Their formation is rigid. They predict straight escape routes. You must break their pattern." Ethan's hands danced across the controls, weaving between jagged rocks that glinted in the starlight. "This is it," he said, voice tight with focus. "We either lose them here or die trying." It is remarkable. When the last ship broke formation and vanished into space, Ethan allowed himself a brief exhale. He glanced at Lyra, who had been observing the entire time. She did not speak immediately. Then she said quietly, almost to herself, "Perhaps I underestimated humans. You do not survive by chance. You survive by intelligence and courage, and by refusing what others would call easy." Lyra explored the shuttle systems, examining engines and shields with meticulous care. She asked questions, not many, but enough to reveal that she was trying to understand human technology, human thinking, and human priorities. Ethan took a moment to study her in turn. The princess who had once demanded death now sat calmly, observing and analyzing. She had expected humans to kill her, to show no mercy, to be predictable. But humanity had chosen otherwise, and that choice was reshaping her perception, reshaping her mind. Mara broke the silence. "Captain, she's starting to talk to us. Not much, but it's progress. Sometimes the way is through kindness, sometimes through courage, and sometimes through patience. Yet you chose mercy." She had been trained to think in terms of domination and control, where mercy was weakness. And yet here was a human defying everything she had been taught and surviving. Her mind, sharp and analytical, could not deny the truth. Humans were dangerous, not because of brute strength, but because of their intelligence, ethics, and courage. The next day, they reached a small, uncharted system with a neutral outpost. Ethan docked the shuttle cautiously, knowing that any mistake could attract unwanted attention. Lyra stepped out first, her movements precise, her posture regal even without the presence of guards. Inside the outpost, humans and a few alien traders moved about, exchanging goods and information. Ethan kept a watchful eye on everyone while Lyra's curiosity grew. She had never seen a neutral system where multiple species coexisted without fear or domination. It fascinated her. "You see," Ethan said quietly, "humans have built alliances with others who are different, not by conquest but by understanding. It's what makes us strong. Understanding, that is foreign to my people. We see only orders, obedience, and strength." She had been taught that they were primitive, weak, and short-sighted. Yet here was proof that they could survive, adapt, and even influence those far stronger than themselves. Night fell in the outpost, casting long shadows through the corridors. Ethan and Lyra stood together, looking at the twin moons of the planet, their reflections shimmering in the glass. "You trust me?" Ethan said, not as a question but an observation. Lyra's golden eyes met his. "I do not yet trust you completely, but I am learning. You have shown me that humans are not predictable. That alone is compelling." Step by step. By the time the first light of the twin suns crept across the outpost, Ethan and Lyra stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, indifferent yet full of possibility. And within that vastness, humans and aliens, enemies and allies, captive and captor, had begun a journey that would challenge both species and change them forever. Ethan's mind raced with calculations, strategies, and possibilities. Humans had survived because they adapted, because they acted with courage and intelligence, because they chose morality over fear. And Lyra, once a symbol of absolute authority, was beginning to see the same lesson, that the universe could be changed not by domination, but by choices, trust, and courage. And so, as the shuttle prepared for the next leg of its journey, both human and alien knew this was no longer just a mission of survival. It had become a mission of understanding, transformation, and alliance. And for Ethan Cole, that made all the danger worth it. The neutral system was quiet, almost peaceful, but Ethan Cole knew better. In the galaxy, silence was rarely harmless. Lyra sat across from him in the small briefing room of the outpost, her golden eyes fixed on the holographic display that hovered between them. Stars, fleets, and planetary positions rotated slowly, and Ethan traced potential paths with a finger. "Your empire is thorough," Ethan said. "They will not stop looking for you, not for a second. And now that they know you were captured, the pressure will only grow. We can survive this because we're smarter than they expect. Humans survive by thinking ahead, not just fighting. If we make the right choice now, we survive. If we act without thought, we die." Sensors detected a small Zithurian strike force moving toward their location, faster and more precise than the humans had anticipated. Mara's voice broke the tense silence. "Captain, incoming ships. They've found us." Her mind shifted from observation to calculation. Their formation is tight. They rely on predictable pursuit. They underestimate speed changes, evasive maneuvers, and psychological unpredictability. Humans excel at the unpredictable. Ethan maneuvered with precision, weaving between debris fields and asteroid belts. Lyra's guidance was invaluable. She called out weak points in the enemy formation and advised on angles that would maximize the shuttle's evasive abilities. During the chase, Lyra did something Ethan had not expected. She disabled a portion of the shuttle's stealth dampeners, allowing the pursuit ships to believe they had the advantage, then suddenly changed course, using a narrow gap between two asteroids to slip behind them. The Zithurian ships collided with each other in confusion, giving the human shuttle a critical window to escape. Mara let out a low whistle. "I didn't think she'd actually do that." Lyra's respect for the humans grew as she saw their dedication, ingenuity, and courage. For the first time, she considered that humans were more than primitive creatures. They were capable of understanding, of moral choices, and of leadership without fear. Finally, they reached a remote asteroid station, abandoned but intact. Ethan docked the shuttle carefully, inspecting the structure. "We can hide here, gather intel, and plan our next move," he said. "It's temporary, but it's safe for now." Lyra turned, her golden eyes meeting his. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I am learning that there is value in flexibility, in listening, in trusting those who would normally be beneath notice. Humans have surprises. Lyra watched silently at first, then began offering insights, pointing out potential ambush points, patrol routines, and weaknesses in fleet coordination. Your empire is rigid, she said at one point. They rely on hierarchy and strict orders. They expect obedience. That is their weakness. Humans adapt. You do not wait for permission, you act. That's why we thrive, and that's why we're going to get through this. We can't just leave them, he said. If humans want to survive long-term in the galaxy, we help when we can. It's who we are. We see strength in alliances, not just in weapons. Mara fired precisely, taking down enemy drones and guiding the traders' vessels to safety. By the time the last Zethurian ship retreated, the traders were safe. They expressed gratitude, sharing supplies and information about distant neutral systems. Ethan took note of everything, knowing that knowledge was the greatest weapon humans could wield. Lyra stood beside him, silent for a moment, then spoke. You humans, you do not merely survive, you influence, you change others, even those far stronger than yourselves. I had not expected this. I had not expected to admire you. That's enough. He taught her human techniques for stealth and evasion. She shared her knowledge of Zethurian tactics and technology. Slowly, a partnership formed, not out of necessity alone, but out of mutual recognition of skill, intelligence, and courage. The galaxy around them was vast and dangerous, but together they were stronger. And that strength was not just in weapons or speed, but in thinking, adapting, and trusting. The following days were a test of that partnership. They navigated through contested sectors, avoiding patrols, negotiating safe passage with wary traders, and gathering intelligence about the Empire. Every encounter strengthened the bond between them. Lyra began to see humans not as weak primitives, but as capable, moral, and daring beings. And Ethan began to see that Lyra was not merely a captive or a prize, but a formidable ally whose insight could save them both. One night, as the shuttle drifted through a quiet nebula, Lyra spoke softly. Ethan Cole, you have given me something unexpected. You have given me choice. You have shown me that strength is not only in command or weapons, but in mercy, courage, and intellect. I am learning from you. And perhaps I will see that the galaxy need not be ruled by fear alone. Perhaps there is another way. Lyra had come expecting death and domination, but what she found instead was something alien to her experience: partnership, trust, and choice. And as the shuttle prepared to approach a neutral planet rumored to hold ancient knowledge about Zethurian fleets, both Ethan and Lyra understood that this was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a chance to reshape destinies, to challenge empires, and to prove that humans and their allies could change the galaxy not through fear, but through ingenuity, courage, and conscience. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the unfolding story of a human captain and an alien princess. Enemies turned allies, learning from each other and facing the dangers of the galaxy together. And somewhere deep in her mind, Lyra realized something profound. The human who had refused to kill her had not only given her life, he had given her freedom, trust, and the possibility of change. And that was far more powerful than any weapon her empire could have given her. The stars stretched endlessly as Ethan Cole's shuttle approached the edges of the Zethurian Empire. The twin suns of the target system glinted off distant asteroids, casting streaks of light across the vessel's sleek hull. Inside, Ethan and Lyra worked side by side, plotting every move with meticulous care. This mission was no longer about escape, it was about confrontation. The Empire would not forgive a missing princess, and Ethan knew that outsmarting the Zethurians here would require every ounce of human ingenuity. Lyra stood over the holographic display, her golden eyes scanning fleet positions. They are expecting us, she said, her voice calm but firm. Their defenses are layered and the capital is heavily guarded. A direct assault would be suicide. If we make one mistake, that is unusual. It was a human strategy, bold, risky, and entirely reliant on intelligence and adaptability. As the shuttle entered the outer system, sensors detected a patrol ship. Ethan immediately initiated a course correction, weaving through the asteroid belt with precision. Energy bolts streaked past, but Lyra's knowledge of her own empire's tactics allowed them to anticipate the patrol's movements. She called out angles and blind spots, and Ethan followed without hesitation. Within moments, the patrol ship's sensors were fooled. They chased false signals, allowing the human shuttle to slip past undetected. Ethan's hands moved with practiced precision, Mara coordinating defensive pulses and Lyra guiding them through the labyrinth of threats. Every move was calculated, every choice deliberate. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the capital planet's orbital defenses. Ethan paused the shuttle just beyond the outer layer of energy shields, letting them drift silently as they observed the fleet below. Hundreds of ships, sleek and deadly, moved in tight formations around the planet. It was a display of power meant to intimidate, and for a moment even Ethan felt the weight of it. Lyra's voice broke the silence. They believe strength comes from numbers and fear. They do not understand intelligence, creativity, or partnership. That is their weakness. Lyra, give me every insight you have on the fleet's behavior. The shuttle descended through layers of orbital defense, using decoys and rapid maneuvers to avoid detection. Lyra's insight was invaluable. She identified weak points in the patrol rotations, predicting where human tactics would be most effective. As they neared the planet, Ethan felt a mixture of tension and exhilaration. Humans thrived in impossible situations because they adapted, learned, and acted boldly. And now, he and Lyra were about to test that philosophy against the might of an entire empire. The infiltration team launched in stealth pods while Ethan and Mara provided cover in the shuttle. Lyra remained with them, observing the pods, trajectories, and adjusting calculations in real time. Every movement was precise, every decision weighted with consequence. Inside the capital, the elite team moved through corridors filled with alien guards and security systems. Lyra guided them via comms, providing knowledge of patrol schedules and structural layouts. Ethan monitored their progress, his mind calculating contingencies in case of failure. The team reached the control hub, where energy cores powered the fleet and communications. Ethan's heart pounded as they planted their sabotage devices, timed to disrupt critical systems simultaneously. Outside, the shuttle engaged in evasive maneuvers, drawing the attention of enemy ships and creating the illusion of a larger assault. Then, chaos erupted. Energy shields flickered, communications failed, and the Zethurian fleet began to hesitate. The human strategy had worked. The Empire, confident in its strength, now faced confusion, disarray, and a threat they could not predict. Lyra's voice came through the comms, steady and commanding. Ethan, the sabotage is successful. Systems are destabilizing. Their formation is breaking. Now is your moment. Lyra observed, noting the Empire's reliance on rigid hierarchy and blind obedience. Humans thrived because they adapted, questioned, and chose. The contrast was undeniable. Hours later, the mission was complete. The sabotage had crippled the fleet, disrupted communications, and forced the Empire to confront a crisis unlike any it had faced before. Ethan and Lyra regrouped at the shuttle, the elite team returning safely. Ethan exhaled, allowing himself a brief moment of relief. We did it. Against all odds, we did it. That is extraordinary. Lyra remained calm, analyzing and guiding with precision, her respect for humans deepening with every maneuver. As they reached a safe distance, Lyra spoke quietly, almost to herself. I had come expecting death, yet I have found allies, strategy, and choice. You have given me more than survival. You have given me understanding. Humans adapt, yes, but we also inspire change. That is the true strength. The shuttle drifted in orbit above a neutral planet, distant from the chaos they had left behind. Ethan turned to Lyra. This was only the beginning. The Empire will regroup. We need to plan our next move carefully. That is a freedom I have never known. The stars stretched endlessly before them, indifferent yet full of possibility. And for Ethan and Lyra, the galaxy was no longer a place of simple survival. It was a canvas for courage, intelligence, and choice. As the shuttle prepared for the next leg of its journey, Ethan reflected on the mission. Humans had won not through brute force, but through strategy, courage, and adaptability. Lyra had seen it, learned from it, and perhaps would carry that lesson back to her empire. In that moment, the human captain and the alien princess understood something profound. Survival was not enough. To truly change the galaxy, one needed intelligence, morality, and the courage to act against expectation. And together they had begun to do just that. The twin suns of the capital planet rose slowly over the horizon, casting long streaks of light across the sprawling alien city. From orbit, the city looked beautiful, orderly, and impenetrable, a symbol of the Zethurian Empire's strength. But for Ethan Cole, it was now a city on the edge of change. The sabotage of their fleet had thrown the Empire into disarray, and now, with Lyra at his side, the real work began, confronting the Empire and showing that strength was not only in fear and numbers, but in intelligence, courage, and choice. Lyra stood beside Ethan in the shuttle cockpit, her golden eyes scanning the planet below. "They will not forgive me for this," she said quietly. "My family, my advisors, they will see my actions as betrayal. They expect obedience. You humans, you act differently. You inspire change not through force, but through action that others cannot predict. I am beginning to understand." The shuttle's stealth systems hid them from most sensors, but enough remained to make their approach tense. Every movement mattered. Every miscalculation could mean the end. As they reached the lower atmosphere, Lyra's voice guided Ethan. "The central palace is heavily guarded, but there are weak points in patrol rotations. Move quickly, act decisively, and do not hesitate. Hesitation will cost you." The palace loomed ahead, massive and regal, its spires reaching toward the sky. It was a fortress designed to intimidate and dominate, a place where fear had always been the ruler. But now, Ethan and Lyra were bringing a different kind of power: intelligence, courage, and morality. Inside the palace, the corridors were quiet at first. The elite team Ethan had sent earlier worked to disable key security systems, ensuring that the path to the command chamber remained open. Lyra moved with them, guiding silently, analyzing every door, camera, and patrol. She had become more than a passenger. She was a strategist, a guide, and a partner. The confrontation was inevitable. As they reached the command chamber, guards surged from side corridors, their weapons raised. Ethan's heart did not race in fear. It raced with determination. He moved with precision, using human ingenuity and clever tactics to outmaneuver the guards without unnecessary force. Each movement was calculated, each decision a combination of morality and strategy. Lyra's energy blade shimmered as she engaged a small group of guards, disabling them without lethal force. "Strength is not only in power," she said, her voice calm. "It is in choice. You humans, you teach this without words. The princess you call Lyra is no longer merely a captive. She is a leader choosing a different path. Your fleet has been disabled, your communication disrupted, and your empire faces a moment it has never faced before. The chance to change. Fight us, and you continue the old path of fear and destruction. Listen, and you may find another way. My empire has trained me to obey, to rule through fear, to follow orders without question. But I have seen what humans can do. They survive through courage, intelligence, and understanding. I choose a new path for myself and for our people. You may either follow or be left behind." Some faltered, unsure how to respond. Others reacted with anger, but even their anger was tempered by the reality before them. Their fleet was crippled, their defenses compromised, and their princess had allied with a human. Ethan stepped beside Lyra. "The galaxy is bigger than empires and fear. Humans survive because we choose cooperation, creativity, and courage. You can continue with fear and control, or you can learn to lead differently. The choice is yours." The standoff lasted only moments, but those moments were enough. Lyra raised her hand, signaling the palace guards to stand down. She turned to her advisors. "I will lead in a new way. We will rebuild not by fear, but by knowledge, courage, and cooperation. Humans have shown us the power of choice. I will not forget it, and neither should you." The princess who had once demanded death now stood as a true leader, transformed not by coercion, but by understanding, trust, and example. Humanity had survived once again, not through brute force, but by demonstrating intelligence, morality, and courage. The palace erupted in controlled chaos as communication systems were restored under the guidance of Lyra and the elite team. Orders were revised, fleets reorganized, and a new plan for governance was formed. Lyra would not rule through fear. She would rule through wisdom and cooperation, taking lessons from both her people and the humans who had shown her another way. Ethan and Mara prepared to leave the capital, their mission complete. Lyra walked with them to the shuttle, her eyes reflecting the light of the rising suns. "You humans," she said softly, "have given me more than life. You have given me understanding, choice, and the courage to change. I owe you more than I can say." That is what humans respect, the courage to choose, even against expectation. Humanity had shown her that the galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of possibility, and that intelligence, morality, and courage could shape its future. The journey back to neutral space was quiet. Ethan and Lyra shared few words, but a deep understanding had formed between them. They had faced impossible odds, challenged an empire, and survived not because of brute force, but because of strategy, morality, and the human spirit. Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft yet resolute. "Ethan Cole, you captured me, yet you did not kill me. You gave me life, choice, and perspective. I am yours, not in chains, but in respect, partnership, and trust. You've shown me that even in the most unlikely places, change is possible." The galaxy was still dangerous, still uncertain, but they had survived, and they had done so together. Humanity had proven its strength once more, not in domination, but in courage, intelligence, and morality. As the shuttle moved into deep space, the stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Lyra, once a princess bound by duty and fear, now faced a new future, one shaped by choice, trust, and understanding. And Ethan Cole, human captain, had shown that survival was not enough. Humanity could inspire change, challenge empires, and transform worlds. The galaxy had witnessed a rare thing. A human and an alien princess, enemies turned allies, demonstrating that intelligence, morality, and courage could triumph where brute force failed. The story of their alliance, their trust, and their daring would ripple through stars, shaping destinies and proving once more that humanity was capable of the extraordinary. And as they sailed among the stars, Lyra finally spoke again, a smile touching her features. "You captured me, yet you did not kill me, and in doing so, you gave me everything. Together,